My name is Francisco Chavez, and I'm doing my presentation on David and the politics that surround his artwork. Furthermore, how politics have had a huge impact on the development of his artwork. So, I would like to get started off with the economic system that David wasn't necessarily interested in, and that system is called capitalism. And so, capitalism today is used in many countries. People often mistaken, or at least like counterfeits to capitalism, communism, which necessarily isn't the case. There's probably only one true place in the world that's communist. Most countries are socialist and use an economic system of capitalism. And so, in short terms, capitalism is an economic system in which is fueled by private trades of goods, and the value of these companies is fueled by the labor that is implemented in the products that is being distributed, which is also known as a commodity. And this system divides people in a classist way, making the higher class the main beneficiary of the system and leaving the middle class and the lower class basically to just fuel off of them. Like they are the stepping stones for the rich. And so I believe David began to challenge these capitalistic views or found it wrong when he was in the Royal Academy. And the Royal Academy was a place for artists to learn art. And his uncles put him there because that's who he was raised by. And they were full. All the artists there were full of royalists. Like there was very the art was directed towards mannerism, and it was basically to paint the monarchy as some sort of savior or to highlight their lives and their luxury. And David did not like that. And so he revolted against the academy. And instead of doing the classical, Rococo art, and Rococo art mostly just put in um, similar work of, Titian and Da Vinci, where they like create the divine form, but they make it a little more exaggerated. They like to make it more colorful, more ambient, everything that would make the British people look better. And so David actually sought to highlight why the monarchy was so bad, and he was a revolutionist, so he was in charge of creating propaganda against the monarchy. And so, to in his own self portrait, he has this very stoic, serious attitude, and this color palette in his paintings. They all have, they're all similar because they have this dark feeling, and that's because it's almost like a symbol of anger, and he wants to change it. He wants to make something better. And as you can see in his dark clothing and this like umber and burgundy, he's very determined as his eyes are pointed to the viewer. Like he's calling upon the people to make a change. And David is actually friends with one of the revolutionists, Marat, and Marat would actually would be in charge of the rallies for like to question the authority of the monarchy. And oddly enough, his friend was murdered, and he actually, that murder that happened was possibly the biggest thing for David to create a piece of propaganda of. And so the whole story behind the death of Marat in this painting right here, as you can see these precise anatomical features and these musculature and the blood that comes out of his clavicle, this emotional tilt. There's a lot of emotion coming out of this painting. Like there's this death, and then there's this black background that fades into this chromatic green. Definitely a sense of color and the illusion of space. And we have this like white light that's shining upon Marat as he sits there dead, and he's holding this paper. And so the death of Marat is shows like he's dead in the bathtub after being killed by this lady named Charlotte Corday, and she killed him with a knife, hidden in her clothing, and she gained entrance into his house on the pretense of presenting to him a list of people who should be executed as enemies of the France. And so Miss Corday was one of the hierarchies, and she was like up in the higher class, and she would not agree with everything that was going on. And so she assassinated Marat, and he thanked her and said that they would all be guillotined. And when in that, like, very vulnerable state, she was guillotined herself after she murdered him. And so this painting really just spoke words as to what these people, the hierarchy, is capable of doing. And this was really monumental. This was like almost necessary to show the people that they have to fight back against this higher class. And that's the role that capitalism played on it, because these higher rich people are affecting how David is painting in this style, because he's angry. And this death, this common theme of just darkness, is very present in most of his paintings. And so another thing that could be discussed in his paintings that was very central is this divine masculine energy. And in today's terms, we would call it hypermasculinity. One of the most notable things is that love couldn't exist for these people because they were so focused on the revolution. And if they were loving someone, it was shown as a sign of weakness because they were so patriotic. It was like the country, we couldn't love. And in most of his paintings, the women there aren't really helping. So it's mostly about the men. And he tries to create the men in this divine way, as we can see, like in the Oath of Horatii, we see these very noble three brothers holding out their arms in a sense of duty, their posture, and they're all calling to the swords as a means of there has to be war or there has to be revolution. Like, this has to happen now. And David even pulled from different cultures or different books to highlight what he was meaning. And so, another thing about the divine masculine, it was also misogynistic because the women were never seen as something to help. And I think that was very important into David's thing, because if the women were actually taken a part of the revolution, if they were considered, then maybe the revolution would have maybe ended quicker. Maybe it would have gone better than they thought. We don't know that because the women were never treated that fairly. In this painting of the Throw at Telemachus is this painting is based on the Odyssey, and Telemachus has to leave to find his father, and he's holding this spear, and he has this sense of duty, but he also has this faint sense of lust and love for his lover Eucharis. And the way he's just upholded on her lap and he's holding her, it's like he recognizes that he loves her, but what's more important to him is his sense of duty. And she isn't really played as a part of his strength in this role. It's just him. And this is what stacks upon that masculinity that comes to today. What's also interesting about David is that there's this color red that's very present in his paintings, and he draws this from Roman culture. And what to David was that he saw that slaves that were considered free would be wearing red caps. And so that's what the French Revolution was based on, and what the colors of the flag was based on. This freedom. And so he incorporates this red in the Oath of Horatii as well. It's this red in these soldiers, like this color red right here, and then this red right here. It's just calling on to freedom, and he needs this freedom to happen. And so that's why he incorporates it. That's another thing to be noted about why the Divine Masculine has such a great impact on his paintings. And also in the tennis court oath, so in this painting we have all of the revolutionists gathering, and if you could I wish I could get a closer look at it. This is only what I could do. Oops, so sorry. There is no women highlighted in this painting. Not only is it unfinished because there was a lot of questionability as to who we could trust in the revolution or who they could trust, there was no women. There was no women in this painting, and that really speaks on what their priorities were. What could they could have done better, and not to trash them or say that they're wrong, but I'm just explaining that the divine masculine had a great impact on his paintings, and we can see it in these other paintings as well. And another thing to note is David himself was a great philosopher in terms of politics. He knew what he was talking about, and he would, depending on the patron who paid him for his painting, he would direct his art to other people, and he would paint their ideologies in the form of politics. And so a lot of his paintings had some kind of political implication, and that would draw back to the anatomy and the way he would paint the shadows, use chiaroscuro or anatomical precision, any of these things of great use. So now we talk about the painting that is most important, the painting that this project is central upon. So using the information that I've already talked about, I'm going to delve a little bit further and use it to analyze this painting. So this painting is called Leonidas at Thermopylae. This painting is also based on Roman culture, and it's based on Roman history as well. And David found inspiration in Leonidas because Leonidas was a king of Rome, and he was so determined to battle anybody that stood in his way. And it shows that in this painting he made, the lighting is central to him in the middle. Like he's naked, he's standing there with his shield, like a sense of bravery and pride, and he's looking directly at the viewer, like much of his paintings um, are similar in, and he's calling upon the viewers because this battle is imminent and he really wants to get it done. And like I said before, there's this constant use of red throughout the painting, right here, right here, right here, and it's all for freedom. It's really trying to free the people. We don't want to be under the hierarchy anymore. And so, if you could see by the soldiers, they all look at him, or they're all climbing this terrain, and they're really trying to ambush the Persians that the Romans were about to fight. And he admired this determination that not only Leonidas had, but also the soldiers had. And you can see here the women, there's maybe like one or two, and they're not really they're not really a big deal in this painting. They're not. They're seen as some kind of something not to look down upon, but something that isn't really important. And it's interesting because it's almost like he thinks that women are not strong enough for this, and so he chooses to paint them as running. And of course, that is not the case. And another great thing about this is that he uses this gold and he uses these colors to really describe like the dark times that they're in, and they're trying to escape out of it. This painting style he has where he uses the anatomical precision that Eurocentric artists have used at the time. You could say that this painting is very the posture he holds could be said that it's similar to Titian and Leonardo da Vinci, because their art was more about posing and having this power in their pose. And that's exactly what Leonidas is doing. He's like sitting there on a rock and he's about to make a move. It's not like Baroque painting where they're in action and they're trying to make a dramatic scene out of it. No, it's more serious than that. It's really employing the politics that surround this, and this all revolves around the French Revolution, because they want the French Revolution to be like Leonidas at Thermopylae when he excuse me, fought against the Persians. And so yeah, that's how it is right now, and for him, and he created this painting as a mark of the revolution. And so that's pretty much it. And then here's my works cited. And yeah, thank you for listening.